Get rolling. And we're being recorded as folks walk in. So this is when I feel like the Zoom doors just bust in and people are shouldering their way through is what I picture.
This is where we stop swearing and stop picking our nose.
I don't know about
Nigel,
you, but
you gotta call me out.
Share our
You
knowledge.
gotta call me out.
Or we get started.
I was like, it's 7:30 p.m. at our house, Nigel.
Yeah,
so I
same.
think at least at my house. So game on.
You're saying I should put vodka in my water this morning?
No one will tell otherwise.
it's water. Oh, you can't see it because my Zoom back.
Zoom back up. So Kathryn's coming to us from from her vacation. So that is her beach cutlery.
The Jersey
right
Shore.
there. Jersey Shore.
There you go.
It looks
Nice.
a little more tropical.
I was like, I bet Howard and I have both been to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that. I've been there
It
too.
doesn't look like that.
Best I could find.
Don't spoil it for me because I've never
Oh.
been.
Oh, sorry.
Eh.
It's a
It
lot
looks
like
exactly
Kathryn's
like
house.
that.
It's exactly like that. You're not going to be disappointed. It's exactly
Not at
like
all.
that.
Perfect. I'm loving it.
Hi,
Green
all.
water.
In the chat. Oh, so the person we were talking about before, the editor who maybe shouldn't be named if she doesn't want a ton of work or can be, is actually in the, you should probably message us privately, editor of ours, and let us know if we should give out your name or not. We're fearful that it might go bananas. Okay, perfect. We got an all good.
Hey, Keith.
Lots of names that we recognize in the space, for sure.
Yeah.
Greetings all. We're gonna give folks another minute to power in, and we are recording this. I did have lots of people say, I'm taking kids to this, that, or the other, but I want to be on this call.
Not sure if you guys are seeing this, but in the chat, I don't have the option to use everyone anymore. I think Zoom changed something recently. Thank you.
I saw that too. Hi, Amy. I just see the attendees.
Yeah.
Hi, Amy.
Hi,
Hi,
Patty.
Carrie. Hi, Alan. Hi,
Hi,
Gab.
I think
everybody.
attendees have everyone, but us panelists don't. So we can't chat in the chat. We can
Well,
only,
let's see if I can fix
I think there's a
that.
button somewhere you got to click. They updated it about
Yeah,
a week
right.
or something ago.
All right.
Hey,
so-
Patty. Hey, Ron. Hey, Roy.
Mr.
We're just
Keith
gonna-
Nelson. Look out, that guy's trouble. That's for sure.
Yeah, Keith is
God. You've been
He's
labeled.
just putting his son down for a nap.
Showing down.
I'm
There is a
slowly
big
making
in joke for
everyone
those that don't
co-host.
know of Keith and his fictitious, or he's not his fictitious son,
Oh,
his
it's more
his
Canadians,
son,
eh?
his adopted son, Sean.
All right, Nigel. So see if you can now chat. I just
Let's
made you
see.
co-host.
Oh
There
yeah,
it is.
I got the everyone now.
Yep.
Okay, so
Perfect.
I Bob, I've got you, and Howard, I think you're the last.
Oh, I got the everyone now too. Hello.
Okay, everyone should have everyone. How's this? Everyone should have-
Everyone has everyone.
Perfect.
Communism.
Just so it meant to be. Now, we get equal opportunity offenders or commenters, as the case may be. All right, well, we are going to kick it off. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us either this morning or this evening, depending on which half of the world you are on. So this is the book bunch. So we just gathered some folks to chat about the books we've written. We've got some MSPs, we've got some folks in the space that have written books. We want to talk about the process for it and really also how it has worked for our businesses in terms of a lead magnet and other strategies. So because it's a crowded room, I'm going to kind of point around the room and let everybody introduce themselves, state their kind of name, rank, serial number, and their book. And then we'll kick it off from there. Feel free to keep things going in the chat as we will certainly respond. But Matt, we're going to start with you.
All right. I'm Matt Rose. I'm one of the founders and owners of Tech Rage IT in the Central Florida area. Been in business for about 7 years now, just serving small, medium businesses. And the book I wrote was called Kiss Tech Rage Goodbye. And it was meant for the consumer, the business out there.
Love it. Barb.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barb Paluskowicz, and Paluskowicz is spelled the exact way it sounds, Paluskowicz. I am the CEO and owner of cdntechnologies.com. I'm also the host of podcast No Tech Talk and the author of IT Scams, How to Avoid Being Ripped Off by Your Computer Guy and IT Services. I'm an MSP, and this book was geared towards small and medium-sized businesses here in the Southern Ontario area for people who are shopping for IT service, IT support, and IT security.
Awesome. Juan, over to you.
Oh, do I got to go next? Is it me?
Yes.
All right. So for those that you don't know me, my name is Juan Fernandez. I am the Chief Encouragement Officer of the MSP Growth Coalition, a spin-off consulting agency after I survived MSP land and found that there was a lot of other things that I could be doing. So I wanted to come out and help. And I am the proud co-author of the MSP Owner Handbook, QBR edition. This book was specifically designed to give back to the community, not only a lot of advice, but also 50% of the profits are going back to a fund that anybody in tech that's looking to get in, because I was once a poor young technician that couldn't figure out how to pay for a certification. So I remember those days, and a lot of that money is going back so people can go to the website and apply for it. So it was really, it's really a give book. So for me, it's a passion play. And I know Marnie as well.
Yep, absolutely. Kathryn?
Hi, I'm Kathryn Rose. I'm the CEO and founder of ChannelWise. We are getting ready to launch. We are an expert advice network for the channel. So folks need assistance with SEO, sales, that kind of thing. You can come to ChannelWise and make appointments with experts. I've written 9 books. My first one was in 2007. My first 6 were from between 2007 and 2009. Really specifically focused on helping people get set up on social media because it was a big deal at the time. And then my last couple were really more thought leadership, talking about the return on relationship and also how to utilize social media in a way that will help you get return on your investment. So
Awesome. Bob?
I'm sorry, what? No. Bob Coppedge, Crotchety Old Geek, CEO over at Simplex IT, Northeast Ohio. Also, I've done a fair amount of speaking and the like on co-managed IT services. My first book was CEO Survival Guide to Information Technology, written for CEOs of organizations, as lovely Barb is showing. By the way, Barb, somebody wants to know if you are Czech in the chat.
Yes, I am a purebred Polak, first generation Canadian. I can say Polak because I'm Polish, and that's the term that we call ourselves, Poles. So no, I'm not Czech, but it's an Eastern European dialect, and I know a little bit, but not too much.
So back to me.
back to Bob.
The second and third book I wrote were both about co-managed IT services. The second one, the MSP Survival Guide to Co-managed IT Services, is kind of a blueprint on that. And then my last book was I Don't Want Your Job as Co-Managed IT Services, Right Fit for You, which was written for internal IT people. And I was going to take credit for writing Sherlock Holmes books, but that's an inside joke prior to the and it is all about me, Carrie.
Tough act to follow. My name is Howard Globus. I own a company called IT On Demand in New York City. We are an MSP, and I am a cybersecurity evangelist working to keep small and medium-sized businesses safe as they work and surf online. I wrote a book called Unhacked. It's specifically geared to work with or to have the small business owner work with their current computer IT systems, their firewalls, how to manage stuff when they're out and about, surfing the web, trying to do business and keeping themselves safe.
And Nigel.
Hello, Nigel Moore. I'm the one without the accent. All of you guys all have the accent. I am the founder of the Tech Tribe, which is an MSP community made up of, I think we're about 3,300 MSPs around the world now. I wrote 2 books. The first one was Package Price Profit, which is all of the mistakes that I made when I had my MSP all around pricing and packaging our plans. And I originally wrote this one primarily to stop answering the same questions over and over and over again and just get it out of my head. And it eventually turned into an awesome marketing piece as well. And has gone on to sell tens of thousands of books and get out there in the marketplace, which is awesome. And then when the pandemic and craziness hit and the economy started going crazy, I started writing a little, it was a Word document that I was going to give out to all of our members just on some things to do during the crisis and how to look after clients. And it ended up over 4 days, becoming the second book. And so I knocked that one out called Survive and Thrive. And it's nowhere near as polished as the first one, but it dives into a bunch of strategies and tactics people should use in their MSPs when you're going through tough economic times in there. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I am Marnie Stockman, CEO of Lifecycle Insights. I was lucky enough to have Nigel Moore write the forward to my book. That way I can say I wrote the book on customer success for MSPs, literally. So, you know, moms can make dad puns too. And then as Juan said, we co-wrote the MSP Owner's Handbook QBR edition. So those are all of us. My thinking would be that the first question we really wanted to talk to was share, and we did a bit of this, but the audience for your book. And I think we're going to grab the MSPs folks for whom their audience are clients, and then we'll grab the folks that are writing for MSPs. So I think Matt, Bob, and Howard, we're starting with you. Anybody else can chime in along the way. So kind of talk about your audience, the marketing, and maybe the intent behind the writing of the book. Matt, I'll start with you. You're stuck in the upper left-hand corner, so you can call on Bob or Howard if you're like, I need a pass, but I'm going to pick on you first.
No, that's fine. So when we just, when I decided to write the book, it was, we kind of, I think what Howard kind of mentioned, and even Nigel, were like answering the same questions. For me, it wasn't so much that like we just had these, companies bang down our door to ask about things, because we came up with 8 myths debunked, one of them being like, you don't need to spend on IT, security is not important, like little 8 chapters kind of things. And I wrote it more because it's hard to get that across in a sales meeting or even it's the meeting and just talk at somebody. So we just started writing that more to be for a prospect, for a customer to read at their own time and at their own pace, whatever chapter may resonate with them. And that was kind of the intent behind it. And I think even like Nigel said, or even Howard, it became a really great marketing tool and became the ability where we sent a bunch out to prospects, we dropped them off at clients, we did a book launch party. And before I get too deep in this, I do want to give Bob a shout out, weirdly.
Everyone says that when they give Bob a shout out.
Usually it's a threat.
Might turn into that later.
Shout out, Bob.
Yeah, shout out, Bob. But Bob actually was really great to talk to me early on in my process because he had been through it and gave me some great advice that I'm sure will come up later as we get to those sections. But I want to make sure I say thank you to Bob publicly. Again, weird, but
perfect.
And I can pass. I can pass to Bob now. And that, there you
go. Keith, first of all, you cannot grow up or be like me or Nigel. You got to do it. You can't do both.
I think there's a song.
It's either the hair or the beard. You got to pick one or the other.
One or the other.
Someone Photoshop both.
So to me, it really gets down to, there are 2 critical questions. If you decided you want to write a book, first of all, you were a silly person. There are 2 questions you really need to answer. Number 1 is, what is the objective from your standpoint? What is going to be different? Not about who reads it, about your life. Are you doing this to improve your organization? Are you doing this to educate? Are you doing this to define yourself as a thought leader? Have some kind of concise idea of what that is. And then the second is, who are you writing this for? Who is your audience? Because if you have those 2 questions relatively well defined, then all of the things you're writing, you can look at that and evaluate it against, are we meeting those 2 objectives? Because if you're not, it shouldn't be in the book. Very simple. So the MSP book, first MSP book I wrote was the CEO Survival Guide to Information Technology. I wrote this to be a differentiator, for this to be a differentiator. So when there's 5 MSPs in the room and I'm one of them, I can say, well, I wrote this book and it also educate. It is not there to sell. So I wanted those were the goals. Everything else I didn't want in it. And then who am I writing it for? I'm writing it for, this may be tricky, CEOs.
You might not understand.
Putting it right up there at the top, I think, is what throws people off, Bob.
I know, and it's smaller font than some of the other stuff, so it's really confusing. But it was, so I'm writing it for CEOs that don't want to be geeks, and I'm differentiating myself and showing that I'm willing to share. those two answers to those two questions make it so much easier. It's still a challenge, but it makes it so much easier for you to judge what it is you're trying to put in and what it is you're trying to keep out.
Howard, you want to follow up on that?
I don't know if there's anything more to be said. No. So when I set out to write my book, I had a similar kind of thought process about what was I trying to say that hasn't already been said, because there's a lot of books out there that talk about the different pieces. But what I realized, and through a process that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on, is that I did have something to say unique in my voice, and the book is very much in my voice, so it's not going to appeal to very many people. Matter of fact, I think my mom doesn't like it, and my dad's not a fan, and I don't know if anybody else in my house has read it. But anyway, but it's a book that speaks to the things that were particular at the time that I wrote it, and with a little bit of foresight, I hope. So I focused on things like security and the fact that people were really just starting to talk about how cyber insurance companies were looking at denying claims and the things you needed to have in place, and how that actually fit into how to be safe while online, but how did that fit into doing work without locking everything down and, sitting in a Faraday cage and not having any internet access. And that's kind of how I took the view. And it was specifically designed to speak to people who really don't have any idea what the hell a Faraday cage is and don't want to know and don't want to talk about anything tech.
You used that phrase in the book. I read it.
No, exactly. And that was the voice I was trying to capture. And like Bob has said, and like Matt has said, it's really the focus of who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to get across was the first step in that process.
I think that being in the MSP space, because since it's a new space, it's all relatively new, that it's really important to educate people and inform them and make them feel comfortable. I know for myself, when I wrote IT Scams, How to Avoid Being Ripped Off by Your Computer Guy and IT Services, it's geared towards people that have concerns when they're shopping for IT service, IT support, and IT security. So they have problems, and they're a little bit shy or a little bit embarrassed about asking questions because they don't want to appear awkward or stupid or anything like that. So I found that the book really helped to open things up, and it was a great segue for people to get the information, understand the terms, understand their environment, and then be comfortable with sharing their problems with you, because now they know how to speak about the problem and what to look for. Because that's all that all of our books do, is they answer problems to questions that we've all heard over and over and over again. That's all I got.
Actually, I'll add one more comment to this, which just shut me up when I do that once too many, which means you can shut me up now. A majority of people who receive your books, especially those of us who are giving them away as marketing, a majority of people who receive your books will not open them, will not read them, will not pay attention to them. And yet you can still have an impact because, after all, you wrote a book, so you must be smart. And I can tell you, do not underestimate that.
Yeah.
It's one of the dumbest things, but it is so ridiculously true. There's part of me that wishes I just figured out a way to write these books with about 10 pages in the beginning, 10 pages at the end, and a bunch of blah, blah, blah. Wow, it would have saved me so much.
I have some tricks on that. I have some tricks on that.
Well, Bob,
Lauren
if you sign the name to Bob from Howard, go get him, on the front page, that sells the whole book right there, because they're like, wow, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kathryn, how about you? What was your intended, you spoke a little at the beginning of social media, but your audience and what you thought about when you started to write them?
So again, it was back in like 2007, and social media had just, become a thing. And I was on Wall Street. I had a whole career. The mortgage market melted down, some personal challenges. I really had to reinvent myself. So as I was doing that, I had to learn it myself. And it was just as simple as like, go here, click this. And so I said, and then I started going out and speaking, and same thing, answering a lot of the same questions. And it was really, a lot of it was just on the mechanics of setting up a Facebook page or the mechanics of tweeting, right? And I thought, well, it'd be great to have like some kind of a guide, right? And so I initially went out and I did all this research, and I was about to pay someone a bunch of money to like do it. And then I found Amazon, and now it's Kindle Direct Publishing, but it used to be something else. Amazon, it used to be called Create Space. That's how old I am. Anyway, and I found out that it was really pretty inexpensive to do it myself. So I did. So that was the first ones. And I told Juan this story, that the very first one I wrote was a step-by-step guide to Facebook, literally screenshots and arrows, nothing like super fancy, was not going to be, nominated for a Pulitzer or whatever. I was just about to release it and Facebook changed its interface and I had to go back and re-screenshot everything. But, to Bob's point, it really was, the book is a business card in a lot of ways, because I wrote 6 books, and they were all screenshots and arrows, but it was information that people just didn't have. And that sort of launched me on, as a speaker and all these different things. And really, I have a formulaic way that I approach book writing now. And I'm happy to share those secrets with you. But really, it was just for at the same thing. I mean, people want people to tell them things they don't know, right? And they want to tell them in an easy, consumable way. And when you're out there doing that, they're very appreciative of it, And so I think really initially it was just to help people understand.
So Nigel, I'm gonna call you out on this one, because I think I know in the discussion of like write a short book that answers questions to help people is your motivation to start, right?
Part of it. The other part is, I don't know if you guys all had this, but I just had this thing inside me that had to come out. And sometimes I don't know if it's like some artists talk about it being the thing that they've got to get their art out, and musicians talk about it. I just had this stuff that I just needed to get out because it was all in there. And I didn't have any desire to be an author. Like in school, in high school, I was my English teacher's most hated student. She used to bring me up in front of the class and berate me for being a bigot and with a narrow frame of mind who had no idea about writing. So I had no want to ever do it. But then I had this thing, kind of this burning desire to get something out of me. And it just started with just kind of writing stuff and just answering the questions that I was being continually asked out there. And it was not from a lot of it was from seeing a bunch, like I was starting to get a couple of hundred MSP clients at that point in time. And I was seeing them all make the exact same mistakes that I had made over the years. And that was upsetting me. Like I was kind of taking on the weight of them all making the same mistakes. I'm like, oh, what can I do to stop this? I've got this thing in here that I want to get out and help them avoid all the stupid things that I did wrong. And so it just kind of got birthed from that. And then I ended up finding a guy called Mike Capuzzi who wrote this awesome book called The Magic of Short Books. And I worked with him to help me pull this thing out of myself. And he jumped on a bunch of phone calls and did a bunch of work, and we worked through it. And I used the framework that he talks about in this book here, which really helped me get it out. And in the long run, it was such a rewarding process, not only for me, because it helped me get that weight off my shoulders, but also for all the readers out there, because it answered a bunch of questions. And it's a couple of years since I launched it, and each week I still get thank you notes from it at the moment. And that's ultimately, I think, what it is about for most of us here, is just knowing that we're getting something out of here, out into something that someone else can consume and get wild, awesome wisdom and help and whatever, to avoid the stuff that we've or the mistakes that we've made in the past, going through the same experience.
Juan, I'm going to send it to you in just a second. But first, if we have ideas for books and resources for folks, if you can type it into the chat. I definitely have seen Nigel's. Bob, I'm a big They Ask You Answer fan myself. I actually found it was, start of COVID. So at the $97 Joshua Sprague want to write a book. And I can remember the first page of the first day is, just brainstorm for 20 minutes about the messiest problem you've solved around the topic you're interested in writing about. And it was around customer success. And that turned into kind of the framework for it. While we're giving shout outs, and somebody did ask where we find editors, Demi Stevens is on this call, and she definitely was the editor for Juan and Howard and me. So if anybody's out for a good one, we'll give her a good shout out, and you can grab her while you can, although Juan and I are getting in line. So Juan, do you want to talk about the book we wrote together?
Yeah, you know, I think the big one was for me, and it was interesting because I actually met Matt's wife on a podcast, and we were getting ready to present, and I remember talking to her, and, you know, she was saying, you know, I've never done any speaking. And I said, but you guys just wrote a book. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm thinking about writing a book. And she's like, you know, look at this thing, How to Write a Book in 30 Days. And it's a personal book that I was like, you know, really feeling like I wanted to put out. And, you know, it was interesting because she was giving me advice about that. And I was like, look, here's how you do this on stage. And like, you know, here's how you get out of your head. And here's the head trash. You got to look at yourself in the mirror every couple of times. And like, you know, and so we were kind of bouncing off each other. And then, you know, I was like, you know, there's so many things that we need to do here. And Marnie, when we talked about it, you know, I just felt like I need to be able to give back. And I don't need to make money at this at all. I want to give back to make sure that people can like go and amplify that and build this community around giving and, you know, that live, learn, give initiative. And so to your point, Nigel, the same thing, right? I just felt this burning inside of me, and Marnie were talking about it. I was like, we can make this happen really fast. Like, you know, you got this framework. We had done a couple of webinars or in-person presentations, and me and Marnie jived, and I was like, let's just rip this book out. Like, and she's like, let's do it. So it was one of those things where we felt like, you know, this thought leadership could be born. It's like all these things that people need right now. Like, how do we meet them where they're at? What are they asking for? What do they need? And so, and then how do we get back? Right. And that's a big thing for me. And so it had to happen that way. And now it's blown up out of proportion, and I'm like overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, all the support from it has been a business that I didn't know I was going to create. When we were just starting to write a book, Marnie, I was like, so Matt, tell your wife thanks for that. Yeah.
I'll have to say thanks for that too. So you brought it up a bit, Juan. How long did it take everyone to write a book? So
that's
I'll
a good question.
This time. Howard, I know you're surprised. Wait, what, she's calling on me for this?
So your question is how long it took to write a book. I think the proper question should be, how long did it take to write a book once you actually buckle down? I started writing a book with Demi. I think it was about 8 or 9 months before I actually finished it. Once I actually started to write it, it was about a 4.5 week process. And I'm talking from start to finish of actually putting words together. I was writing a book in my head, and I was saying I was going to write a book for quite some time. But it was always something else that I was thinking about doing because I thought it was this huge project that I would never get to. And I know I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but what I found that worked best for me was, instead of writing, because I was thinking I was going to have to write. My wife is a writer of fiction, and she writes longhand. I thought I was going to have to write longhand or type it all out. And that was one of the things that stopped me. I actually spoke my chapters, the entire book, into my phone, had it transcribed into Otter, and then started picking it out and moving it around. So once I realized I didn't have to write the book by writing the book, I could just read the book.
Yeah.
It was a much easier process. So
book hack for sure. Yeah. Nigel?
Yeah, that first one, I was very lucky that I got given a deadline by someone that said, hey, I was talking to them on a phone call, and I mentioned, hey, I'm going to write a book. And they said, if you write the book by this date, we'll buy 500 from you and we'll go give them to all our clients at a conference. And I went, oh, holy crap. Like, there's a bit of a deadline for me. But that was awesome because it was a forcing function to get me to go through that thing. And I think it was about a 2 to 2.5 month period between those dates that I had to go and knock it out. But my process of writing the book is, I reckon I got 90% of it done in 2 to 3 weeks. And then the remaining time was the 10% took the remaining 2 months to go and do, because it's the whole editing and tweaking, like that brain dump, that initial brain dump, it shocks you because it just pours out and pours out and pours out. But then to get it into some sort of coherent state, that part there was the tough part for me. And I stupidly, in hindsight, didn't enlist the help of an editor or anything. I had Mike helping me with framework and stuff, but no editing. So I self-edited the entire thing. And that took me a long time. But I think that one was all up. It's probably 3 months all up through that process. But I reckon hours is kind of hard to pick in there. But the second one was literally done and dusted and edited in 4 to 5 days. That one's it's only a little 100 and something pager. Maybe it's like writing 2 to 3 big blog posts. Essentially, you only need I think that one's about 12,000, 14,000 words, and the other one's about 20,000 words. They're not big books, and that to me is the secret of them, because they all get read. And I've got many comments from people that have said, hey, this is the first book that I've actually finished in a darn long time. And that was my intention when I first did that brain dump. So much came out, and it was double the size. And most of that editing was, what do I pull out of this thing to make it so that people can finish it and get everything out of it. And there was so many little stories that I included, and little things that were fun and good to share, but they weren't beneficial to the outcome of the book. And that was like Bob's point of figuring out what is that outcome that you want the book to be about, and what do you want your target reader to have at the end of it, is so vitally important. And that was what Mike kind of kept me on point for, that with just making sure that every single thing that I include in there is wildly necessary for the book. And that part was stupidly helpful for me.
And I think that actually helps answer what Keith's statement is. He said, I've published white papers, tech guides, worry that my style would lack personality, humor, and readability. How do you get past the technical writing and writing what is readable? So I think first you've got to keep what's in there that's mission critical. The other piece that I did was I had an outline of the content, the actual knowledge or skill that I wanted to outline. And then I tried to align stories to each, right? Or a bit of something, whether it was a framework, a story, a bit of humor, to make it flow so that it wasn't just technical, was one approach I took. Kathryn, you look like you had a thought on that one.
Yeah. So again, after I wrote the first 6, and then I started thinking of very formulaic. So it used to be to have a book with a spine with writing on it, so when you put it on the shelf, there's little words on there. It was about 150 pages. Now they've gotten it, and you can make it very small writing, but you can get it down to about 80 pages. To your point, Nigel, try to keep it around 10,000 words. And it sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, how much you write like a blog post. The other thing you can use are like literary things, like a lot of bullets, a lot of what they call Johnson box. So it's like call outs. So it's not all having to be, prose in the thing. The other thing you can do, which something I did and Juan and Marnie did, they co-authored. So the burden doesn't completely fall on you. My 7th book was the Solving the Social Media Puzzle. And what I did was I added my own spin, but then I went out and found all Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook experts and said, hey, would you, write something in here? And then at the end, I credited all of them, in the book. So it helped me get my book out faster, but not, I didn't have to write every word. So there are definitely ways to do it that it makes it more manageable. Having said that, I think you said 4 or 5 days, Nigel. Hello, chat. That is like huge. You're my God. But
that must be before you were tracking your sleep.
My family didn't like me for those 4 days.
It is a process, and it's something that you do have to, you have to undertake. And I cannot stress enough the importance of editing. Nigel, you mentioned that you self-edited. The very first one I did, I self-edited. People were like emailing me like, honey, please have someone edit your book.
I'd like to recommend Demi to you.
So and again, part of the problem is as you were saying, like trying to narrow it down, trying to be succinct in your thoughts. And that's what an editor really does. And then you're able to just let it go. You're like, here you go, fix this piece of it, and then get it out in the world faster too. Yeah.
Defeat the blank page. Sometimes Juan will tell you it takes a Saturday morning and a bully, but if you really buckle down.
We got it done every Saturday for a couple months. And every morning my wife was like, how's Marty doing? I was like, we were working. I didn't talk about her
I have
personal
no
life.
idea, but we got a book. Bob, how about you? How long was, because you've got a couple different styles too.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to back up a little bit. Nigel, I'm going to pick up on something and disagree with you from a personal process standpoint.
Man.
You basically, well, it's because of the hair, you hippie. No, but it's one of those where you were talking about having this story that's building in, you have to get out, you have to get out. Well, the alternative of that is I speak or was speaking a lot at webinars. So I had tons of stories and tons of content that I already was speaking about. So it was almost the opposite, to gather that stuff back in and then organize it and coordinate it. So you can actually be in either one of those situations, and it's still, the muse must be fed, however you want to define that. So back to the question of how long and the like, first of all, it doesn't matter. What matters is you do it. You do the work necessary that fits in with your life, your schedule, your process, all of that. If you try to force yourself into being that, I'm going to write it in 5 days, or you try to say, I'm going to take a year, and your personal work ethic or work methodology is opposite, this is going to become, become an adversarial project.
Yeah.
And it won't get done. The other thing that was kind of along the lines of what Keith was asking, you've got to know your voice. And whether it's the editor helps you find it, but it's got to be your voice, because you aren't good enough of a writer. I don't care who's on the call, with the possible exception of Kathryn, because she's got 9 books. None of us are good enough of a writer that we can fake an authentic voice that isn't our own. And I keep going back, and you guys heard, I call myself constantly the crotchety old geek. If you read any of my books, you know a crotchety old geek book.
Well, and that's okay, right?
Yeah,
that's okay, because
absolutely.
those people will resonate. And a lot of people will say to me too, well, somebody's already written a book on this. Well, there's lots of books on all different things, social media and whatever. Their content resonates, with some folks, and my content resonates with others. So it's okay if someone's written this on the same topic, they just have a different take on it. Maybe, I think one of the commenters was, they write a lot of white papers. They're a technical writer. There are tons of people, my husband being one of them, who came home from a conference that was a book on cables. I swear to God, it was a book on cables. And so he would appreciate that, right? He would appreciate that. He would appreciate that. So it's okay, right? And as you were saying, Bob, like it's make it your voice, because your voice will resonate.
So Matt, how about your book? How long did it take?
So from when I thought of it to publishing, it was about 9 months. But I think it was said by a few people. Writing it was, I gave myself an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning before work, and just got everything out to an outline, like you said, Marnie. The outline was huge. And that part probably finished in 2 to 3 months of a few hours a day. And then it was the editing, and it was going through iteration of cover and all that, and being very nervous to release. And what Bob just talked about, finding your own voice, was exactly the best advice he told me.
Yeah.
Of don't have a ghostwriter, do it yourself, and make sure your editor knows you, some way or another, so they understand the humor. And I think even Keith said it, if you have a sarcastic or a dry sense of humor, it can come across in the book. Bob's sense of humor comes across fine in his books, but the editor has to actually help you with that.
But you also, and this is something I pointed out to Keith, it can't be humor so that you sit there and go, I'm being clever. Okay, it's like any other seasoning. Too much of that seasoning is going to ruin the taste. And there are so many, and I have to watch this constantly, whether I'm speaking or writing or whatever. If I'm being snarky, I have to be snarky in a way that the wink is huge to the person who's on the receiving end. If I'm being condescending or deprecating, I'm being it to myself more than anybody else. And I'm not doing it as yes, I know I'm smarter than you, but I'm going to say something deprecating about myself so that you'll think I don't feel that way, you loser.
Barb,
So
how long did yours take?
I'm embarrassed to say that it didn't take me very long. I had a ghostwriter that I worked with, so it probably took me about 5 or 6 days to do the writing, but I will agree with Nigel. my husband and kids and everybody hated me. Like, you know what? They just hated me. I had my deadline of getting this done. And then towards like the end, you know, when they say the last 20% is like 80% of the job, figuring out the cover, what to put on it, what's attractive, what's not attractive, because knowing that the majority of people are not going to read it. Okay. Like that took just as much time as it did to actually writing the book. Because picking up on what you said, Kathryn, is that it's a business card. People will throw away a business card. People will throw away a magazine. People will throw away white papers, brochures. But to throw away a book,
I don't throw away
the
any books,
guilt
yeah.
is just overwhelming. It's just like you can waste money, but could you take money and like flush it down the toilet, like put it in the water and like watch it? No, you couldn't do that with a $20 bill, but you could accidentally waste it and things like that. So no one throws away the book. So it took me about 4 to 5 days. I was very much hated, and that's all I was doing. Like, you know, like that was it. Just, it was something like Nigel, you said, like it needed to come out. I was having like, he's like, you know, I'm gonna get a ghostwriter to help me out with this. It was on my bucket list. I wanted to do it. I had my own personal deadline, like get this shit done. And you know what, like it was happening, and I was bulldozing my way to get it done. And it got done in 4 to 5 days.
Well, and you were, I think a lot of us are all talking about physical books, but, you know, obviously ebooks, Kindle books and things like that are, you know, just as beneficial because, you know, my expert network is global. So I wouldn't be able to drop one off at everybody's house. So I could send them a link. You could send links to your, you know, to your customer. Somebody asked a question about Audible. I did an audio version of Return on Relationship, which was an interesting experience.
There's an Audible.
I'm sorry?
I said, I wanted to see who else did theirs an Audible.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was a very interesting experience. But there, you know, so there are other avenues than a physical book that you can use as well.
So Bob and Nigel had their hands raised too in the Audible piece.
Yeah, I strongly recommend it. It was not very hard to do. And in my case, I've got a, wait for it, just, you know, suitable voice for it, you know, face for radio kind of thing. And I found an engineer, and it was much, much quicker and easier for me to do the recording for the book than it was writing it. And that gives you just another avenue. And if you do it, and I'm just doing self-publishing, but if you do it through Audible, they give you like 50 credits or something like that. So you can share that with people. So if you basically say, I don't read books, well, let me send you an Audible link, and they can get the book for free, you know, through Audible. So
I know, Nigel, when you did the forward for mine, you and I talked about doing an Audible and how many folks had asked for it. But I feel like since then you actually did an Audible.
We did. Yeah, we had a number of folks ask for it over the years, and I took the lazy person's route of paying someone else to voice it. I really wanted to voice my own, but we just kept getting asked, and I was trying to focus on a bunch of other internal projects, so I didn't have the time. So we went and found a voice that I liked the voice of the reader and got them to narrate it. And I think it was maybe $2,000, $1,500, $2,000. It wasn't very cost prohibitive at all. And they did a really professional job of it, and the process of getting it up on Amazon for us out here in Australia was an absolute nightmare because Amazon don't deal with Audible for Aussie authors very easily.
Yeah.
But once it was up, it's getting, again, loads of downloads in it, which is all those people that don't like reading, they like listening to things out there. So it just opens up another complete segment of the audience.
Nigel, did you do yours with just through Audible, through Amazon stuff? Or
no, we had to use Findaway, or a service called Findaway, I think it was, for the Audible side of things, because we can't upload direct as an Aussie onto Audible, or we couldn't find a way to do it.
There's Demi in the
You
chat.
can actually, oh, sorry, someone was asking about getting, there was a service
Findaway
that
voices. Sorry.
you can get your book signed, Audible book signed. There was a service out there.
Oh, that's funny because Ray's asking how Nigel or how Bob can autograph.
Of course, Ray wants one autograph from Bob for sure.
He's gonna sell it on eBay.
Yeah.
So
NFT.
who's published? Raise your
Sorry.
hand if you're self-published, KDP, or at Amazon.
I did both.
All right, so Kathryn, you're the only one with with both experiences then.
And the thing I'll say this, I personally preferred the publishing, the self-publishing, because you know, you have to be very careful with publishers. You have to be very careful, like how you negotiate the rights to the book, because they all want to own the rights to the book. And if you want to turn it into a course, or, you know, you want to have a second edition, you have to do everything through them. So I was able to negotiate a different situation, but you know, and if you do a published book through a publisher, they do give you an advance and all that kind of stuff, but it's very strict. Like you have to get, you know, your certain things, and it's basically 18 months from the time you start till the time you finish and it's actually published. They do not help you at all market it, even though they say that they're going to. They just don't. And so I found the self-publishing option to be much faster, you know, much easier. If I have to market it myself anyway, you know, everything was, you know, was good in my opinion. It was much better. And now I have control over the material. I can do whatever I want with it. I'm not under someone else's time schedule of when they want to launch the book and all that. So I think, you know, from you know, this point, plus you make more money on self-published books. And I know, Juan, you were saying it's, you know, you wanted to, wasn't about making money, but you can make money at this.
Oh,
honestly, you know, and I think Bob mentioned it, or Nigel mentioned about, you know, even if people don't actually buy the book from Amazon or from wherever, you can use it as, you know, because some people don't want to pay people to speak at conferences for whatever reason. They don't like paying people, but they'll buy a bunch of your books.
Right.
So there's different, you know what I mean? There's different ways. You can get corporate sponsors even. So some of your vendors out there, you can say, hey, you know, buy, you know, 100, 500 of my books, and you can give them away at the next, you know, MSP summit or whatever they're doing. So there's definitely ways that you can use this to generate income for sure.
So what are ways, you mentioned marketing, what are ways that, I know everybody has said they're giving it to prospects. How else are folks marketing? I'm curious how Matt and Bob and Howard, you're marketing toward end clients, because I suspect that's a little different than the folks marketing to MSPs.
Did you say Bob or Barb? I can't.
Oh, sorry. I said Bob, but feel free to chime in.
I was going to say, I've chatted enough. Somebody else pitch in.
Oh, I'll do it. Because what I found was unique, and I didn't see anyone else do it, and I highly recommend it. I'll show you what I did. See who that is?
Oh, yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Mr.
Everybody
Moore.
know who that is? It's Kevin O'Leary. Okay. You know who this is? It's the other one.
Robert
It's
Herjavec.
Okay.
Herjavec. Okay. Do we know who this is?
Oh, I was going to say Barb Corcoran. Okay. Oh, I was so close.
Let's see.
Kevin Mitnick. Okay.
Yeah.
We know who this is. You guys aren't going to know, but if you're Canadian, you might know this. This is the Honorable Navdeep Bains, Member of Parliament. He's also the Minister of Science, Industry, and Innovation. And then we got this one. Hazel Mccallion. This is the mayor of the city. She is 101 years old, and she just signed on for a 3-year term for the board of directors with the Greater Toronto Airport Authority.
Wow.
Okay. All these people, everybody knows who they are. They're celebrities. Okay. I'm just a female MSP owner in the tech space from Canada. They're up here with their, like, you know what, followers and leaders and influence. And I'm just a person with, you know, a little self-published book that I had a ghostwriter with. But this is the whole thing. These sharks, they had ghostwriters too. They're all about helping, you know what, the little person move forward in a positive direction. Navdeep Bains, Member of Parliament, the mayor, you know what, as soon as, you know, I have like my global influencers, I have my provincial influencers, and I have my local influencers. So I'm covering all levels. Getting them to hold my book and things like that. Oops, I offered it to them as a gift. Like, you know what, here you go. I've read your book. Can you please sign it? Like, I would love to have an autographed copy of your book. They love it. They love it. We all know what it's like. People ask us to sign the books that we give them. Then I give them my book and then they say, this isn't signed. Can you sign it? And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, what? And then I'm signing it. And she's just like, what? Thank you, Mr. Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. Little things like that. When I marketed my book and I marketed on social media and things that other people that have had my book, it naturally grew and generated interest, because now I've positioned myself with another book author, which just so happens to be a celebrity, and that worked for me. Like, I'm not, it was hard to do. Like, it wasn't my idea. My business coach said, what, if you're going to be meeting this person, you read his book, ask him for the signature. And like, like the idea came from a business coach to help me move my business forward in a positive direction and to help me get noticed. The end of the day, they're just people. They put their pants or their skirts on the exact same way. They had ghostwriters. They're happy for you. You know what? It makes them look good. You look good. It's a win-win for everyone. So that was my best marketing thing that I did.
Can I dive in with just a couple of things on the distribution of the books that's helpful, not only for people that are writing for MSPs, but also for their clients and whatnot. And we did this a few times now, is that if you use, so we use Ingram Micro Ingram Books, which is one of the world's largest book, what do you call them? Distributors or printers or whatever. And one of the options they've got when you upload the book to them is they can put in a front page in here that's customized each order that you put through. And so for some vendors, we went to them and we sold them the books at cost, and they would buy 500 books and they would put in the front page from your friends at, and then their logo, a big picture of their logo on it. And they loved that, because then the vendor had their own, like a book with their logo and their name and everything inside it. And then they would go and pay for the cost to go and give it out to 500 of their customers. And so that works for, like, for me in the MSP space, it works for MSP vendors that are like, some of the large MSP vendors have done that and bought it and sent it out to all of their clients. But for even MSPs doing it for their clients, you can do it to accountants or lawyers or bookkeepers or anyone that's got a group of small business clients. And you don't have to charge them for it. You can pay them for it, because you're going to get your business card, as someone mentioned before, in the hands of a bunch of potential prospects for you. And it's going to position you as a thought leader. It's going to make the accountant or the lawyer or whoever it is really happy, because they got their logo and their name in the front of a book, and they've given a bunch of value out to their group of clients out there. And that's worked incredibly well for us. And I think it costs an extra $1 per book printed to get that first page put in there to have their logo and a little message on it. And works really well.
So let me add a couple thoughts here. One is that the printing of the book, again, self-publishing, which means in the US at least, going through Amazon. Okay. The bottom line is the cost for me is roughly, depending upon the book, $3 to I think $5 for me to get a single copy of this book. Now, when we think of all the marketing that we do, the cost of a book to send to a potential lead is ridiculously cheap compared to all the other crap that we send out that is nowhere near as differentiating. So any thought you have, and Barb, I like the idea of what you're doing, but any thought you have about, I'm not going to give this out, drop that idea, flush the toilet, let it go, let it pass, all of that good fun stuff. Because anyone that you potentially converse with, whether it be a one-on-one conversation, put a bunch of these things in your car, all of that, so you can always say, well, I've got this book, can I get you a copy or anything along those lines. And so we've done it for because we do a lot of networking events where we sponsor for other organizations. We do for a group that specializes in private director, associate board of directors, another for manufacturing companies. And we basically say we would love to give our books to all of the members, all of the attendees. So we always got a few hundred copies in the office, and we will give those away to anybody. My MSP survival guide, you got to buy a copy. Okay. Reason being is because this is for establishing me as a thought leader on co-managed IT service. I am that. Suffer. So I don't need to give that one out anymore. But this, I do want to give out because it is a marketing piece. It is that differentiator. So know why you've got the book, but do not look at it as you're giving away a book from the standpoint of the cost on your part.
Yeah.
Because Barb's absolutely right. People don't throw away books. They throw away business cards.
Yeah.
So we've got a question in the chat that I want to make sure we get with only 5-6 minutes left. Are the American Writers and Artists Institute credible? Are they credible? So I do not know of either.
I've never used them.
No idea.
I'm going to say, Demi in the chat, do you
I don't know. I don't know.
know? How about Nick? This is terrible. I'm going to say we're going to answer it live. And the answer is, I don't know, but we'll ask around. How's that? Yeah, Howard.
So I don't know about that group, but there are a lot of different publishers out there that will do things like say, come to me with $8,000 and then you have to buy 1,000 copies of the book, and I'll help you write it. There are other ways of doing it at different price points. That was not my experience with my editor or process, and it was a lot less expensive and it was a lot more supportive. So just like everything, right? I mean, the name of my book is Unhacked because of the scams that happen out there. There's a lot of scams that happen, and some people are going to charge you, $8,000 and you need to buy 1,000 books, and some people are going to charge you $12,000. You need to buy 500 books. I don't know of that particular, and I was actually stalling to see if Demi would answer the question, but my thought process is when I first started looking to do this, I was looking around and a lot of people wanted a lot of money from me for something that I was like, pretty sure I can do this a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, be wary of those, because that was the first thing. If someone they wanted $25,000 and they would help market the book and help me write the book and all that. And I was like, I wrote the book already. And so then when I found out, at the time it was called Create Space, the thing cost me $29 to do the cover of my book, because I had one of my friends do it, and put, upload it on. And if you wanted to buy, so it comes with an ISBN number, that's what it allows it to be sort of, it allows it to be in libraries and schools and different kinds of things. It's the identification number on the book, right? But you can buy, at the time, you could buy an expanded version of that so that it would be available in libraries and expanded distribution, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, be very discerning when people are talking to you. You really don't have to spend a lot of money at all if you decide that you want. The most money is going to be the editing. I'll just be honest about it.
I will say this one last thing, for me, I have spent about $8,000 on a book that is not done by hiring somebody that led me down that path early on to only frustrate the hell out of me and make me not want to do it. Right. So, coming full circle and finding, Demi and Marnie to really kind of, kick this other one out, it's so much cheaper and so much faster and so much more pleasurable. So it's just really finding the right, editor, making sure you got the right process. There's a bunch of great people that are here to share their ideas. Nigel is now offering up free help over at the Tech Tribe. So they'll have a whole channel around it.
Yeah.
So
there goes my inbox.
And we'll definitely have folks. Yeah, we'll definitely have folks on ChannelWise too, because it's such a big thing, and it's. I just think that it's a lot easier than, it's a lot harder than some people think, but it's a lot easier than other people think. And it could be such a big, and Bob, to your point about, the idea of like, you could leave a hat or, a pen, leave a book, because it is so much more beneficial.
So with 3 minutes left, I'd love for everybody to either say their favorite piece of feedback that they've gotten on the book, or maybe a piece of advice that they would give folks. Although I do have to say, Kathryn, that last piece you said, it's either a lot harder or a bit easier than people think, is a good one. But I'm going to go around the same order when I started. So Howard and Nigel, be ready at the end. You're going to have to come up with something brand new after I've slogged everybody else. So Matt, what do you think?
So one thing we didn't expect that we found towards the end is we ended up ordering a few, whatever Amazon calls them, like the author copies you can do like as a proof. And it's because when we had the graphic made for the book, we had to go through a few iterations. And if we had printed hundreds of copies, it would have looked like crap. And luckily we printed one, try to get it. I think we had like 6. But that made it look really good the final time. So we wouldn't have thought of that, but luckily, Juan mentioned my wife and partner Erica. Luckily, she was on that, and that saved us from a lot of embarrassment or wasted money.
Good answer. Barb.
Okay, I got three things. I'll be quick. The first thing is there's no limit to how long your book has to be. It could just be 3 chapters, okay? I recommend using big font and big margins because it's easy for people to read. And the last thing is because people might not read it, one of the things that's really important is to have a dedication at the front, basically who this book is dedicated to, because it showcases your personality, your style, and yourself as a human.
And people want to, work with people. Juan, how about you?
I think the first tip of advice I'm going to give is start writing. That's the hardest thing to do. The second thing is I found a lot of meaning in giving away, strategy, tactics, tips, and tricks. And I think we did a lot of that in the MSP Owner's Handbook. It's chocked full of tips from all over the place. Like Nigel was saying, there's so many things you want to say. Find creative ways. I mean, we even tapped into the psychology of the book with the little characters, right? Like there was a whole reason we wanted to make learning fun again, right? So it was like, we don't have to be so serious. Like we don't have to be so stale and stuffy and like real rigid around our approach. So just have fun with it. I think that was the business. And that honestly was really fun to do. Lastly, I'd say just, know that you have a story, trust in yourself and just go for it. Like, don't worry about what anyone's going to say. We didn't worry about it. And as we started thinking through it, it was like, after it was done, I was like, oh crap, I hope that's good. And it's like, well, if there was a lot of people that committed to it, so hopefully they caught it before we release something that's horrible, right? So just don't get in your head, stay out of your head, just put it down, get it out.
Yeah. Kathryn?
Juan, you stole mine. Just, write the dang thing, right? Just get out there and do it because it really, your voice, you have so much inside of you and knowledge and different things that you're working with that can really benefit people. And it will benefit you and your business as well as the people who read your material. So don't overthink it. You could just start by writing down a list of questions you get all the time and answer them. And you'll be very surprised at how quickly that adds up to 10,000 words.
Bob?
So one side note is I actually used one of those expensive coaching services for my first book, spent a ton of money on it. And what they gave me was absolute crap. But without going through that process, I would not have written the book.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where, a commode with silver lining. Matt, I think I told you the story on that. The other thing is when you think about it, so you've got the book, you figure out who you're writing for and what is it you're looking to get out of the book. Then what are 10 topics you want to cover or 8 topics, whatever. Those are your chapters.
Yep.
Okay. Now you have your chapters. Now for every chapter, give me 4 or 5 questions you want to answer about that particular topic.
Yep.
And then just go and answer the freaking questions. That's how, and that's kind of like the same if you want to play a flute, blow in one end and use your fingers on the holes. But that's kind of the process of just sitting down and writing the damn book.
Love it. Yep. Howard?
So a couple of things were already said by people, things like, just start, you have a story. These are things that I was thinking about as well. But I think the biggest topic or the biggest point that I would focus on is you're not trying to write the next great American novel. Right? Because that was something that I thought that when I wrote a book, I wanted to make sure it was the book. I didn't need to write the book. That was not the purpose of my book, was to write the book. I wanted to write a book so that way I could have a couple of questions answered. What's been said a couple of times in terms of people not throwing out books, but they throw out business cards. It's something that sits on a shelf and people will see it. People will think about it. It's something more thoughtful than, a thank you note or an envelope with something in it. It's something that's there. So getting out of my own way, and anybody who wants to write a book getting out of their own way, and recognizing the fact that they don't need to write the next great American novel, and it doesn't need to be War and Peace when it's all said and done. It just needs to be good enough to get your ideas across.
Nigel?
+1 to everyone else. We're over time. I got 4 things down here, so I'll go quick. Number 1, if you've got it like that burning desire that a bunch of us here have had inside you, then you have to go and do it. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of regret piling up later on in life. So just get in there, do the work, get it done. And even if it's 20 minutes a day over a year, you will knock a book out in 20 minutes a day over a year. The other one is, for me, it was incredibly helpful to have a framework that once all this stuff came out of my head, I had a framework that I could kind of bundle it into the spots that existed. And so that was super helpful. If you're going to go one, try and find a framework that works for you. The third thing in here is I've written write as you talk. So as I was writing as I would talk on a webinar or when I'm talking to someone in person, versus the way I was taught to write in school, which was very technical and boring and whatever. And so writing as I talk, very colloquially, and I couldn't put the accent in there, but that really helped the readers on the other side. That helped the readers on the other side get through the book, which is, to me, wildly important, helping them get through the book in a better approach. And the last thing I'll add in there is, if you are going to do it, figure out a way to get yourself some sort of deadline. That deadline, whether it's a publisher, whether it's someone that you've got to have it done for by a certain date, that just helps. Every person I've worked with that's written a book that we've got a deadline in place for, it's taken up until the midnight on the deadline to get it done, but it's always gotten done by that deadline. And that deadline is wildly helpful in there. So
well, get accountability partners. That's what I did in my last book. Was we held each other accountable, and it was, she wanted to write a book and I wanted to write a book. And so it was, we set deadlines. We met every Friday. Hey, did you write your chapter? That kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. It's really important.
I am with Nigel. I have to +1 everybody. I will tell you that I walk while I write my book. So first I moved into a brand new neighborhood at the start of COVID. So, and I had my clipboard. So they asked me if I was the homeowners association. Somebody actually pulled over and asked me if I was FBI. I was like, yes. The FBI is not using clipboards and pencils. You got me. But the second one, I took some folks' advice first. I'm with, have the outline, like Bob said. I have an idea of what you want to do. And then I would write down the first question or the first chapter, and I would just turn on speech to text in a Google Doc on my phone and walk and talk. So now the same people now think I've upgraded and I'm talking myself into the next book. But you get a lot of content that way, and then clean it up. So we are 6 minutes over. So I am super grateful of everybody's time. We clearly could talk about this all day. I suspect we are all findable on LinkedIn, since that's where I did literally find everybody here on LinkedIn. So I would suggest to folks to reach out to us if you have questions. We're obviously really excited to educate others. That is part of the passion behind writing books, and would love to, answer follow-up questions. I will ship this recording out. Carrie, I'll do my best to give some highlights from it. Maybe can talk people into giving me some bullet points, so I don't have to aggregate all of it. But thank you so much for everybody for joining. Have good days, evenings.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Mornings. Thank you.
Bye.